I was recently asked if I would do a annual analysis of my trip and the numbers I would assume included in that. Well, I did a little bit of research, got a few things got together. Well, this is what I've got. I've decided to start the year in review the month after I sold my house. So, I sold my house. And I couldn't leave the Kansas City area just yet because I still had a doctor's appointment and a dentist appointment scheduled. So I decided to go out to the Leavenworth State Fishing Lake to spend a few days. I've done a video on that. You can look that up if you want. And then after the appointments, well, I didn't quite make it out of the Kansas City area because a heater hose was leaking on me. Fortunately, I had a friend who helped me out on that. Just got a piece of hose, a few clamps, and fixed that. And then I was on my way. I spent a few days at Weston Bend State Park. I believe I did a video on that too. Nice little park. Kind of expensive, but you know, I had the money at the time. And from there, just headed up to Missouri and then through Iowa and then the craziness in Minnesota, and then up to Wisconsin. You can see all those videos on my heading north videos. Well, I spent some time at my sister's, and then I headed back south because it was getting late in the year. Went through some hills of Wisconsin and then into Minnesota. Then zipped over to South Dakota, picked up mail and took care of a few administrative things, and went to some nice city parks out there. And then that brought me down into Nebraska. You can see all my Nebraska videos from that time. And then that brought me down into Kansas. Well, by the time I got back to southeast Kansas, it was time for an oil change. So that cost me about $100, maybe less, for the oil in the filter. I didn't go with cheap oil because I've got a big engine. And then after fighting all the crosswinds, I finally got into Texas. Usual places in Texas, of course. They are very good at travelers, giving them all these nice little city parks. You can see those videos as well. But then we got to El Paso. And if you remember that video, that's where I went to a Ford dealership and spent about $700 to get the exhaust manifold gasket put on, and spark plug wires and spark plugs and all that stuff. And they did a good job. I mean, it lasted quite a bit. And then I went through New Mexico. That was interesting to see the desert for the first time. And then got into Arizona, and well, you saw that video too, I hope. Spent almost $300 on a starter and the starter solenoid when I was stuck at a truck stop, sitting at the on a gravel lot at a wrong angle. Oh, that wasn't fun either. But I got that fixed and kept going through Arizona and finally got to Quartzsite. Got a bit of experience there on BLM camping areas in the area, as well as what services Quartzsite has and doesn't. But something did happen in Quartzsite. I didn't mention this in any of my videos, but I think it was due to the fact that I had been parked in that truck stop at a weird angle for so long that my 30-year-old refrigerator finally died on me. And if you know anything about RV refrigerators, you know they're insanely expensive. Especially the 8 cubic foot refrigerator that I had in my motorhome. Well, that set me back about $1,500 for the refrigerator and the installation. And of course, the new refrigerator is a different physical size than the old one. So they had to do some cutting in my motorhome to get it to fit. Which is interesting because while my old refrigerator was 8 cubic foot, the new refrigerator is 7.5 cubic foot. And that's mainly because it's not as deep, which is kind of inconvenient, but that's this new stuff for you. So then I went around, the Quartzsite area, enjoyed myself with the warm weather, the free camping spots. Then it was time to head back down to Yuma for the winter. That was very enjoyable. It got cold in the morning, but that's about it. During the day it was really nice. I definitely recommend going to Yuma for the winter. And then I came back up to Quartzsite after the cold was over with, and I got back there a little too early because the Rock and Gem show was kind of still going on, and I actually ran into a traffic jam. But then I decided I'll just get out of there. I'll head over to Ehrenberg. Spent a couple of weeks in Ehrenberg. That was pleasant. I did a video of that place as well. And actually it was a little cheaper because the laundromat was cheaper and the dump station was cheaper. But I did have a problem. Winter wasn't quite over with in southern Arizona, so it was still getting kind of cold in the morning. And wouldn't you know it, my furnace stopped working on me again. Well, I found out that the control board had gone bad, even though I had replaced it about a year or so before then. So I spent another $100 on a brand new furnace board, a different manufacturer. It seemed more robust than the one that I had replaced, so cross fingers. Well, back to Quartzsite to finish off my early spring, late winter. Of course, that was when the solar panel, my portable solar panel, got hit by a dust devil. But that didn't cost me any money at the time. And then it was time to go back north. So I headed east from Arizona. And that's when my tire got punctured in the desert. Oh, that was very disappointing. That cost me $200. Well, I couldn't not pay it, Oh, well, that was done. And it was still sunny, still warm during the day, no rain, no high winds. So I headed back across Arizona, and then across New Mexico, and then that was the interesting part of New Mexico, the hills. A bit of a challenge, a bit of a strain on the motorhome, but it was really kind of a nice little drive through the hills and mountains of New Mexico, and then finally ending up in Texas. Well, by that time it was ready for another oil change. I changed the oil and the filter on the engine, and when I was in Quartzsite, I picked up the oil filter and air filter for the generator, so I changed the oil and air filter and all that for the generator as well. It needed an oil change, but the filter wasn't too bad, considering all the dust that I'd gone through. Oh, but it wasn't very far in Texas that another little problem happened, and that is the battery under the engine for the house battery. The original one, not the ones that I added on, died on me almost to the day 3 years after I bought it. I think they must time those warranties just perfect. So with the oil change in the battery, that's $200. I suppose it'll last another 3 years, although I'm kind of worried about the 2 additional batteries that I expanded on, because they're going to be coming due in 3 years warranty in a couple of months. Hopefully they last longer. Anyway, got through Texas, went up back to Kansas, had to stop off at Kansas City for a doctor's appointment and a dentist appointment, annual stuff. So I stayed at the Leavenworth State Fishing Lake again. It was kind of nice, getting back to familiar territory. But something else happened. Well, when I was at a truck parking area to stop for a night while in Kansas City, I discovered that the taillights of my motorhome weren't all working, which I thought was kind of odd. So I looked around, measured a few things, and I happened to notice this cable was flopping, and I pulled on it, and the whole cable of wire fell down on me. Well, it turns out that when I was installing the backup camera, somehow the drill bit caught the wire and cut it, either partly or completely. And I'm not sure how long I've had that problem, because I did that before I sold the house. So anyway, went to the hardware store, picked up some wire, got my crimp connectors, and did a temporary taillight wiring so that I had at least the taillights on either side working. So after that, I just went up to Missouri, through Iowa, through Minnesota, avoiding the crazy area, and into Wisconsin to visit my sister and brother and other relatives. And I did a few videos on that. And from there, I did a bunch of repair work. I did a permanent fix on the taillights. That was fun. I had to cut a little hole in the back of the tire storage area to get access to everything, and I crimped and taped things up and got my taillights working just perfect. And then I was comparing my sister's motorhome with mine, and I noticed that there was a hose on her air cleaner filter box that wasn't on mine. Turns out that somewhere along the line, a hose from the oil fill pipe goes from there to the air cleaner box was gone, and it had a little weird plastic 90-degree piece that isn't common apparently, although I solved it. I didn't make a video of it, but I was more interested in just getting the work done than recording it. So I found a similar plastic piece, modified it, put on the hose, hooked the hose up, and now I'm back so that I don't have oily air all over my engine. And my nephew noticed that there was a little oil leak in the back of my engine, and he said the oil sensor was leaking the threads themselves. So I replaced that. That was really simple. And of course I resealed the roof. That's something I need to do every year or two. And I also, I did a video on this, the solar panel update, adding the 40-watt solar panel on the roof with the dog barking. And I did a video on replacing my portable solar panel with something that's a little smaller, maybe a little heavier, but a little more power. And I had my nephew do a little bit of work on the exhaust manifold because it was leaking from climbing all those hills in New Mexico. And of course I went up to the city park in Exland. I did a video on that. That was a nice little park. And of course I helped my sister with her motorhome a little bit. Did the solar and a few things inside, cleaning the thing. So I spent about at least $300 on all those repairs when I was in Wisconsin. So after that I left Wisconsin back through Minnesota over to South Dakota to take care of mail and all of my business, And well, I made a video of this too recently. I spent about $2,000 on the motorhome at the Ford dealership in South Dakota. The exhaust manifolds that my nephew installed didn't last, and of course the video mentioned that the metal of the manifolds was warping and needed to be replaced. But there's also something else I did have them do for me. Ever since I had this motorhome, there's been a certain ambiguity in the steering. Seemed kind of dangerous. I've mentioned it to other people, and they've driven the motorhome and they didn't really notice it. Of course, they never got it up to speed. But my nephew did some testing, and he told me that the steering drag link had some play in it, and that made sense to me. So I had the Ford dealership replace the drag link, and they also replaced the tie rod just to make sure. And sure enough, my ambiguity is gone, even though the weird steering on this motorhome is still there. But I guess that's normal for these. But at least I don't have to wander all over the road, and I don't have to hold the steering wheel with a death grip. Oh, $2,000. That was a big bite. So after that, I did a few more videos through South Dakota and then in Nebraska. And it's in Nebraska that I arrived at my 1-year anniversary from selling the house. Now, if you want some numbers, here they are. When I started that year-long adventure, my odometer read 91,407 miles. And a year later, it read 97,613 miles. That comes to a total of 6,206 total miles, which explains the 2 oil changes, because I change the oil every 3,000 miles. Now I use a Fuel Buddy app on my phone to keep track of all of my fuel purchases for the motorhome, and it does calculations for me. What I have listed as my fuel mileage average is 39 cents. That's 39 cents average fuel per mile. So when I multiply that for 6,206 miles, that costs me $2,420 and change in fuel. I suppose that's not too bad, considering my average miles per gallon is 6.21. I wish it was higher, because I save a lot of money. But you gotta realize I'm going up and down hills. If I was just driving on dead flat land, I probably would get much better gas mileage. So I added up all the fuel costs and all the repair costs for that year, and my repairs came to $5,402. Now if you went through and were adding this up as you go, you'll notice that it's incorrect number. Well, I didn't include the refrigerator. That's because at the time of the refrigerator going bad, I received a refund from my homeowner's insurance, which paid for that refrigerator, which was nice, really nice. So I didn't include that in the repairs. If I had, well, my total is $7,825 or $9,325 with the refrigerator. And I keep a spreadsheet of all my expenses as well. And I looked through that and added everything up. And my total expenses for the year came to $16,149. If I included the refrigerator, it would have been $17,649, which would have been over budget. My budget reference is $16,000 a year, which I will probably be increasing. But I wanted to challenge myself. With that being said, according to my spreadsheet, 7 out of 12 months I was over budget. And those months didn't seem to have any corresponding reference. It's just sort of random. So that's my year in review and all the costs of maintenance and living. Not too bad, actually, considering what I went through. So I'm hoping that this information helps other people decide whether they want to become an RVer or not.